Hey, real estate agents, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to cover another critical topic in your real estate business, how to navigate the closing process, right? Make sure you get paid, protect you from any liability, and more importantly, provide a great customer experience so that it leads to more sales. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Guillermo, Salas, former attorney turned real estate agent. I've closed over 1,500 transactions in my career. And on this YouTube channel, I'm going to share every tip, system, trick, and process I've ever created to create a massive real estate sales business as well as other companies. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel, but more importantly, in my video description is my calendar link. Schedule a 15-minute free strategy session, and I'll help you with this topic or any other real estate related topic out there, help you elevate your career. Okay, so let's jump into it. Navigating the closing process starts with, first step is, hey, you got it under contract. So we're gonna review the contract and make sure that we actually have a contract. Everything's signed, all the information's correct. I can't tell you how many times where we think we're on the contract, but we missed a signature or we missed a initial, and technically you're not on the contract. And so you wanna make sure you review that you actually have a binding contract in place, you've gotten the deposit, and you're now aware of all the relevant timelines, right? You wanna make sure you don't miss any of those. Like, hey, when the deposit's supposed to go in, when the inspection deadline expires, when you're supposed to have your mortgage commitment. Now, spoiler alert, I use a transaction manager to make sure that none of this stuff falls through the cracks. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Step number 2 is engage in a title company. A title company is going to be a huge partner for you, right? They're going to make sure that there are no liens or encumbrances on this property, and there's no, you actually go to closing and that it doesn't show up at the last minute. So hugely important, and quality matters. Make sure you get a reputable title company that will make the process go smoothly for you, because they're going to also handle a lot of the closing processes. The other thing they do is they can order city certs or UNOs, again, which can bring up problems to light about the property. Maybe they didn't get a permit for a particular thing, or there's some liens on it that are specific to the township. That's usually important to get done early in the process so there's no surprises at the back end of the process. So again, number 2 is make sure you engage a reputable title company. Step number 3 is hire a transaction manager. So I sort of gave you that spoiler alert. A transaction manager is going to keep you super organized and keep you out of trouble, right? Make sure you don't miss any of those dates. They deal with all the administrative stuff, all the minutia that's involved in the deal. And they can do things that are going to be elevate you and get you out of the way, right? So like making sure that all the dates that are in the contract, you hit them. Communicate that clearly to both the buyer and the seller so that everybody's on the same page. And they're going to help you with other things potentially in the transaction, like order inspections, making sure that the appraisals and things of that sort. So I advocate hugely, go get yourself a transaction manager. There's companies out there that charge $200, $300, maybe $400 per transaction. They have a closing guarantees that if the deal doesn't close, you don't get paid. Some of these companies do that. You don't have to pay the fee. Some of these companies offer that. So, and more importantly, it shouldn't cost you anything. It's very common to put on the altar a flat fee commission, right? Our job is to go market and sell a house, not to do all the administrative things, the agreement to sell that are technically the responsibility of the buyer or the seller. So you can put that fee on the altar and use that to pay for the transaction management service. Okay, step number 4 is ordering the inspections and the appraisals. And again, like I mentioned before, big advocate, use your transaction manager, hire a transaction manager to execute that and just basically quarterback that process. And the inspections, it's not just the general home inspection, it could include things like termite, radon, sewer inspections, if it's got stucco, again, sort of stucco inspections as well. And the thing for me, I never really attended the inspections. I just sort of thought that it was always a time for my buyer to be with their trusted advisor, the inspector, in order to just go through the house, understand where the pitfalls are. From a liability standpoint, I just never wanted to be that person who was perceived as, hey, you just want your commission, you're minimizing some of these issues. Now, you do need to ask, in most cases, check your state laws, ask the seller and the listing agent permission to not attend and make sure that they're okay that the buyer and the inspector can go in ahead of time by themselves. And now the appraisal. That's what's going to determine the home value and is a critical part in terms of obtaining the buyer financing. And so what I would do in that process is sort of get on the phone ahead of time with the appraiser and just offer, right? Some people don't want it, but that's okay. But I would always offer, it's like, hey, would you find it valuable if I send you a set of comps for this particular property? Most often than not, the appraiser was appreciative of that effort and wanted it. Sometimes they didn't, but anyway, that's a good practice to get into and just help the process along. Step number 5 is resolving contingencies and negotiating repairs. And so, yeah, you have contingencies in your agreement of sale. The biggest one that comes up is the inspection, right? So you're gonna have the inspection, you're gonna go over the report with your client if you're on the buy side and just work through all the things that will come up in that inspection report. Now, go watch my video, how to bulletproof your deals. In there, I give you my process and system on how to minimize deals going sideways. And sort of spoiler alert, it's all about not negotiating repairs, but negotiating a credit and setting expectations with the buyer, the seller, and the other co-op agent on how this is gonna be handled. So absolutely, you're gonna go through the report, come to some sort of credit, and that'll make your closings so much smoother and less contentious at the end of the day. Step number 6 is finalizing financing, right? And so you're just gonna keep an eye on where the process is going. Again, I'm leveraging the transaction manager on this rather than me having to keep track of it. But it's really just a matter of like, hey, where we're in the process, appraisals in, everything's tracking well for closing, buyers submitted all the documents they need to do, and just making sure that we're on track. Step number 7 is prepare for closing date. We're almost there, right? And we're getting close. And that's really just making sure that you go over the closing disclosure with your client, make sure all the fees in there are accurate, there's no surprises, it matches up with their full expectations. And then it's coordinating with the title company to actually schedule the closing date and what the process is gonna look like. And step number 8 is closing the deal. We're there, right? And so really it's there, you're at the closing table. If you're on the buy side, please don't forget to do a walkthrough, right? So before, maybe the day before closing, if it's an early morning closing, or if it's a later in the day closing, the day of, go take your buyer, do a final walkthrough, make sure there's no surprises, God forbid, there's a leak and there's something that all of a sudden, you rather know that before closing rather than post-closing. And then when you're at the closing table, really the title company and or the lender is going to sort of go through the documents with your client so they fully understand what they're assigning. And on the listing side, I always felt that closes were more for buyers. So it is okay for a seller to sign a deed package ahead of time, have you as their client go on behalf to closing for them and just wire the money afterwards. Again, it's a preference. I thought I would save my client time, just sit there hours twiddling their thumbs while the buyer went through all their loan documents and that sort. So it is a preference, and then I would just go celebrate with the seller afterwards. Well, there it is, all the steps you need in order to navigate the closing. And again, the key part here is having a great team in place. And that's a transaction manager and a great title company, as well as a good inspection company. You're sort of getting the sense that if you have really good partners in this process, it's going to go out way smoother for you. Thanks again for tuning in. Again, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And again, in the video description is my calendar link. Let's schedule some time together and go into these topics deeper. Until next time, go out there and cause and create miracles. Have a great day.